welcome to the podcast. I'm Pastor Matt, and we're happy to have you join us again for our reading through the Bible in a year as we sit in Scripture this year. And everything, as we read it, we're always trying to identify how does this point to Jesus? Because everything in Scripture always points to that one story that either Jesus is coming and that you need Jesus, or that Jesus is here and that we now live in as Christians for Jesus. So today I'm excited to have Robert Graham join me. So welcome, Robert. Thank
you, Matt. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. So Robert is an interesting guy because he has lots of stories. He keeps threatening to write a book. And how far are you on that book?
Well, I got some outlines. I've got some stories written down, but I know that everybody says that because I've got a lot of stories. It just worked out that I was able to travel a lot, both in the military and in my subsequent civilian career, and ended up a lot of different places.
Yeah, because you were a pilot, right?
I was a pilot, both military and civilian.
Yeah. So what were you flying in the military? What type of
In the
plane?
military, I couldn't hold a job there either, is what I usually joke. I flew C-130 transports. I flew an observation.
Big ones, then. That's a big one?
That's fairly big, 120 passengers.
Transport like people, then?
People,
okay.
Material, paratroopers,
So
you
whatever
name it.
needed. Okay.
Whatever you needed. I used to joke about the C-130 that she will do anything for you except fly fast. But you need it moved, we can move it.
Yeah.
Anywhere you need it moved.
And then you were a pilot in normal everyday life, right?
I was retired here at Offutt Air Force Base and subsequently worked for a major airline and got to see the world all over again.
Because you did some international and some...
I liked the international. I did domestic, but out of the service, it was a matter of what can I make a buck and feed my family. It sometimes comes down to that. Work is good and unemployment's bad. And life's not much more complicated than that sometimes. Mm-hmm.
So if you were to, since you've traveled a lot, you've been to a lot of different places, is there one travel location that is a gem that nobody knows about or that very few seem to know about, that you're like, this is just a great place to go?
Well, I have my favorite little places.
Yeah.
Restaurants and places I sneak off.
Like
and
location,
general. Yeah, general.
Like,
in touristy places, believe it or not, they're
or...
place to sneak off to.
Yeah.
But I would think in all the travels that Marlene and I have done, one of our favorite places that if I were to go back to, I would gone back time and again and like it very much. When we were in Germany, we would escape to the Interlaken region of Switzerland.
Okay.
Yeah, which is incredibly beautiful up in the mountains.
So the Swiss Alps.
It's in Swiss Alps, just south of the town of Interlaken, which is a large lake. And if you can afford it, we have some favorite places, which I'm not telling anybody, even you, Matt. Sorry about that. Where we can actually afford to go and stay. In most of the world, if you want to hike on the mountain, you have to hike up the mountain in order to be able to go down the mountain. The Swiss have this idea with this combination of trains that go up the mountains and cable cars and whatnot, Seiselbahn in their language, that you can take the Seiselbahn to the top of the mountain and then walk down the mountain where your coffee and cake is waiting in the afternoon. And that's much more civilized than having to climb the mountain.
Up it. I get that. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you were military. You served in Desert Storm.
I served in Desert Storm.
You brought a helmet along.
I brought my pot along. You mentioned the storm. I suppose that's a story. We were stationed in Germany where our eldest daughter was born. Yeah. And at the time the wall was coming down, we had been stationed for what was supposed to be a very easy backwater assignment at Fort Benning, Georgia, and Columbus. Yeah. And my job was going to be to run the airlift for the schoolhouse there. That's the U.S. Army's infantry school. So they have the airborne school, so we're graduating about 100 paratroopers a week. The U.S. Ranger School is there, so we're parachuting the Rangers. Very straightforward, 9 to 5 job. Show up, throw the kids out of the airplane, rinse and repeat the next day. And very straightforward. I walk into the job thinking this is going to be a really easy assignment, and then lo and behold, the president made plans to invade Panama. That was our first war when we were there. In a 2-year assignment, I ended up with 2 wars. We successfully invaded Panama, captured the president. Manuel Noriega was wanted for drug crimes in the United States when we brought him back. And then we got a little lapse, and which was fortunate that my daughter Jessica timed her arrival into the world. She was born exactly between Just Cause and Desert Storm, which was perfect. And then lo and behold, just as Jessica is starting to get along pretty well, intelligence shows up, and it's apparent that we're going to do a deployment to the Middle East for a tank war in Iraq.
Yeah.
And so along with my Navy and Army counterparts, we moved hundreds of thousands and hundreds of vehicles by air, sea, and land.
So was
railroad.
this the C-130 then that you were flying?
I wasn't flying.
Okay.
I was a staff guy.
Okay.
Making all this happen, talking to my neighbor.
Logistics stuff then?
All logistic stuff, resupplying it when we got there.
Yeah.
The war actually kicked off. We acquired some airfields from the Iraqis, and we operated out of those.
Yeah.
And then politely cleaned everything up, dealt with the situation, and blew up their airfield and left.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting experience. We'll leave it at that. Yeah, we got the chance to worship. My wife was kind enough to mail me to my daily bread when we could get together on a Sunday and worship. We would. Our chapel was usually an altar on the hood of the chaplain's Humvee, and that's as elegant as it got, but it was a chance to worship together.
Out in the desert.
I carried it out in the desert. I carried the Gideon.
Ah.
Of course, there was a time you actually used to get these in school.
Yeah.
Can't do that anymore. It's virtually illegal, of course, and have a Bible in church. But fortunately, I got this one, which was an NIV that I carried for 30 years. And this is from the American Bible Society. And so we throw a few bucks their way.
Yeah.
They make Bibles in hundreds of languages again around the world. And so for me as a GI processing out in Hinesville, Georgia, when we were actually deploying, somebody handed me that, and I've carried it ever since.
Great. Well, thanks, Robert, again for joining us. Today, Robert and I are going to be talking through the book of Daniel. And Daniel is an interesting book. So let's just start with some background, and feel free to jump in as I go through some of this. But today, what we're talking about with Daniel, it's important to understand. Looking back, we had Esther and Ezra and Nehemiah that we just went through. We're actually going back in time now to do Daniel. So this is not in chronological order, because Daniel is the earlier part of the exile, where Esther, Ezra, and Nehemiah are the later part of the Babylonian exile. And so we're talking about the Babylonian captivity. Jerusalem has been destroyed. The people have been sent to Babylon, in particular, who Daniel is, and the other guys that go with him in the first wave are like the prestigious people, right? They're the ones that are related to kingship or noteworthy, smart intellectuals, and that's kind of what the Babylonians took first. So
this is an act of empire, is to bring the young people in and assimilate them into our culture.
Yeah.
And this has been a tactic used from the Babylonians on into every continent you can imagine. So we're going to take the young people, Daniel and his companions. We're going to give them new names. We're going to teach them our language. We're going to teach them our customs. We're going to feed them our food. And then we're going to give them our gods, because we don't like theirs, and send them back to convert their society to be part of the greater empire.
I always compare Daniel to Star Trek. Were you a Star Trek fan?
I'm a Trekkie.
So in Star Trek, you have the Borg, right? Conform to us. You become one with us. Like, you will be conformed to who we are, and we'll take on the best parts of you and keep maybe some of it, but you will become one of us. And that's basically what the context of Babylonian Empire is trying to do. We're going to bring in the best of you, and we might take and enjoy some of the stuff that you bring, but you are going to become a part of us, and you will then impact and influence everybody else in your culture to be like us as well.
Exactly so.
So this is what we're stepping into with the Babylonian exile. It's a very interesting space to step into, because Babylon takes those people, and it's the context of what do these Jewish young men, is what we focus on, because it's Daniel and the three friends particularly. How do they conform? Do they do something different? And that's kind of the story back and forth that happens, is how do you interact with a world that is counter and contrary to your very belief system?
Exactly. And that's what makes Daniel, to me, so very relevant, not just now, but always, generation to generation. Every generation has faced an empire that is forcing us to conform to how they believe. Yeah. If we separate ourselves and say, well, we're not going to be a part of it, then we fail to bring God's word into the world. But if we completely conform, then we lose the message when we assimilate.
And this is that balancing act of, we are to be in the world, but not of the world, as the New Testament would state it. And that's kind of this constant wrestling of, if you're, and how I always put it, especially when I did student ministry, is, yes, you should have friends that are non-believers. Yes, you should interact with other people. But if they are influencing you, then you probably need to figure out ways to put boundaries up and cut people off at times until you're strong enough to be the one that's making the impact rather than being influenced.
Exactly.
And that's our constant wrestle as Christians in this world.
Exactly. And I always, to me, this always brings to mind Pastor Dietrich Bonhoeffer, because he's forced in Germany. They've taken over the seminaries. They're forcing loyalty oaths. How far do you bend, and where do you draw the line? Yeah. As he did, willing to martyr himself rather than conform to an extreme evil empire.
So Daniel, as we look at this book, is part history, part prophecy, and it's also, for many of us, if we grew up in the church, part Sunday school memories. Like, we know the Daniel and Lion's Den story. We know Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and we know the Veggie Tales versions of these as well, of us singing those different fun songs, and they do a great job of storytelling in those. But these three things, prophecy, history, and Sunday school memories, make sure we're walking into the correct context is kind of what we need to make sure as we're sitting in this. So growing up, for us, most of us, it was Daniel in the Lion's Den, the three friends in the furnace. But reading as adults now, there's a lot more going on. The first half of the book is these stories that are a little bit more practical in a way, of like history stories of how these guys were interacting and staying true to who they were. And then you have the apocalyptic that we get into as well, of these prophecy stories. So let's start at the beginning of Daniel and kind of walk with him and his friends through this experience. So these teenage boys are in Babylon. Then what happens?
Well, they're forced to make some choices about how conformed they'll be. I think the food is the first one. Yeah. Where eat as we eat, or else. And Daniel finds a compromise. He finds a middle ground.
So let's pause for a second right there. What was wrong with the food?
I don't know. Well, probably it was not halal. It was not kosher.
Yeah.
Probably the odds are that it did not meet their dietary needs.
Yeah.
as
And
it had
likely
been given in the law.
dedicated to idol
And it had been
gods.
dedicated to idols.
Yeah. So there's kind of this
to their dogs.
double
There's
going
this thing going on there,
Yeah.
and this has been
Yeah.
sacrificed to Dagon, and we don't.
So they didn't eat the food. Daniel ends up making a deal, right?
Right. What kind of deal?
Yeah.
And we'll eat how we eat, and if we're not doing as well, then we'll see. But give us a chance to try what we do and see if you can approve or not. And I think it was a pretty good. That one works pretty well.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten in yet into fiery furnaces or any of the rest of his stuff that's a little more extreme.
Because it ended up being that he was very healthy, stayed healthy, and ended up being quite good at what he was supposed to be doing. So, yeah. So then the next thing that we come to, so the next big story we draw into is the fiery furnace.
Yes, there we go.
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Easy for you to say.
So it's interesting also. So Daniel is a different name.
Right.
And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, though, have, when we identify them with their Babylonian names.
Exactly. We
not
never
their
use
Jewish
that.
names.
We never use the Babylonian name for Daniel.
Yeah.
Belteshazzar.
I'm going blank on it now.
I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go there.
Balthazar. Balthazar?
Yeah, Belteshazzar.
Yeah.
Balthazar's a guy in a sci-fi show.
Yeah.
But anyway, an awkward name.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just too awkward for us as English speakers. But the point being that we always give Shadrach and the boys their Babylonian names.
And so what happens with this fiery furnace story?
Well, they're going to be, obey. In this case, I think it's the bowing down.
To Nebuchadnezzar.
Nebuchadnezzar, and or I'm gonna barbecue you. There you go, and get out of that. And he orders the fire so hot that the people putting them in are killed.
Yeah.
And so it's a pretty hot fire. And they walk around in the fire. They aren't killed. And there's a fourth man in the fire.
Yeah.
And you can go with that where you will.
And
Again,
what's the story with the fourth man in the fire?
Usually that credits to Jesus as being their Lord.
Yeah.
And so they survive the experience.
And isn't it the language of one like the Son of Man?
One like the Son of Man. Son of Man is an interesting term.
Yeah.
My understanding is if you look at the Hebrew, it's a direct translation of the term son of Adam. Mm-hmm. So it can be referred to as human. Again, I don't think that takes anything away from Jesus.
Yeah.
Because he is.
And interestingly, Jesus, that's his preferred name.
It is his title.
Like the one when
throughout
he asks or offers it up is always
the Son of Man. Yeah.
So it's a very interesting,
pretty cool
deal there. So one of the things with this in the fiery furnace, so you'll notice in certain songs, especially several modern songs, Christian worship songs, they'll reference fourth man in the fire, things like that in it. That's in reference to this. The fourth man in the fire is the one who protects them, saves them. And most would say that when it references the Son of Man, it means that this is the pre-incarnated Christ, or a Christology, meaning that Christ, before he took physical form as Jesus in the New Testament, existed, which is important to know and understand. Jesus is always existed, and he was in the Old Testament in several places.
Which, and indeed brings us back to the opening of the New Testament, because John opens his gospel with, in the beginning was
the Word.
The Word.
And the Word was God.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, from the very beginning.
Yeah. So they, interestingly, end up in the fire, but what they say, I think, is really powerful. Their statement is, our God can deliver us, but even if he doesn't, we're not bowing down.
They're going to serve God in the way they see to serve God, regardless of the consequences. And that's throughout the ages. Do we not say anything when somebody says or does something that is offensive to us as Christians. How far do we bend? Where does that line go? That gets back to this balancing act again.
And I picture, so several years ago, it's not that several years ago, but not that long ago, the Coptic Christians who were beheaded over in the Mideast, and they were told just simply disaffiliate yourself.
Yeah,
and they
refused.
Wouldn't. They refused, and
at the cost of their lives.
And I think 13 of them in that one situation.
And that's one situation, but all throughout Africa and Asia. And
Nigeria is a regular issue right now. If you haven't followed stuff going on in Nigeria, there is a lot of persecution of the church going on in Nigeria.
There is, yes. A lot of people dying.
Yeah. Well, let's jump to our next story, probably the best known one, the Lion's Den. Daniel's faithfulness.
Lion's Den.
He wouldn't stop praying. It's kind of really the storyline. So what's going on here?
Well, he's going to, do this or else. We want you to stop praying and
people conspiring against him.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the king likes him, actually.
Yeah, actually, at this point, the king's gotten away with. There's been a change of regime. Cyrus has come in, and he doesn't really want to do this, but he's maneuvered into a position where his own words work against him, and he has to throw Daniel into the lion's den, and the lions are, of course, going to eat him. Except
they don't.
They don't.
The lions' mouths were shut.
They were shut, and I think the king is much relieved that he doesn't have to eat his own words. Is that a bad pun?
Yeah. And then the conspirers get thrown in.
Yep.
And the lions' mouths were not shut.
Exactly. Not so shut. Yeah.
So one of the things that I find interesting through this whole first section in particular is there's a contrast. We just did the story of Esther, and Esther was much more conformed to the exile. Like, she was a part of that culture, living in the culture, where Daniel feels a little bit more like, no, we're going to stand up for what our culture is and who we are and who God is, where Esther almost feels like she fell into like what the storyline was, because that's how my impression is that Esther's like very, like, because she was involved in the pageant and things like that, and we're like, oh, those aren't real great places to be finding yourself. But Daniel's storyline is almost the opposite in terms of like standing up and defending what is right and living into it, where Esther finds herself, okay, now I have to make a stand finally.
Exactly. So they're told for different reasons and related in different ways. But exactly. So Daniel has to take a stand a lot earlier and a lot crawling into the den with the man-eaters is pretty grim stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this whole first half is speaking to these stories of Daniel witnessing, and the people, and particularly the kings, witnessing God's power over kings and empires. That's one of the themes that we see, and that gets continued in some of this prophecy that we're going to step into. But we see Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, Darius, they all realize ultimately, despite them thinking of themselves as God, they are not. God is God, and you are not. And that's kind of one of these things that hits.
Yeah, we used to have a pastor that said two things. There is a God, and you're not it. Yeah. But the kings believe that they are kings. Yeah. And to this day, there are people of power that believe that they have created their power, and they have no power except what's been given to them by God. And that's where the power really is, that they serve his interests. Nothing is wasted. It moves on.
Yeah. So we get into the second half of this book, and this is where I'm always like, okay, what do we actually step into and what don't we? Because there's a lot of visions, dreams, and what could be and what for sure is and what we don't know. And it's all this balancing act of like, okay, what do we actually know versus what do we think we know, and what do we just throw guesses at along this? So.
It's hard. We do not normally use this kind of language.
Yeah.
This is used throughout the Bible. Daniel gets reflected in Revelation, and these visions and horns and
beasts,
really strange beasts
numbers,
coming out of the sea and numbers. That
gets pretty wild.
It gets pretty wild. A lot of people, what people want is they want prophecy to be a future history. Okay?
Yeah.
This was very popular in the 70s as people would rate, okay, here's what's going to happen, A to B to C to D. We've got this. We just watch your newspapers. You're going to see this in the next few weeks. And I'm really convinced that that's not why God gives us prophecy and not how we relate to it. These are images that are hard. We don't use this language anymore. So we have to approach it all with a little bit of caution.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what's relevant to me is that all of it relates to each generation in their own way. So it talks about the abomination, which a lot of scholars would say represents when the Greeks came in after Alexander, and they put a statue of Zeus in place of the altar in Jerusalem.
Yeah. And didn't they even slit a pig's throat on the altar?
Exactly.
So they sacrificed a pig, which would have been very unkosher.
Yeah, it's not good. Well, is it the prophecy fulfilled?
Yeah.
Or does it refer to Jerusalem under control of the Romans, where they have violated the people and eventually destroy Jerusalem?
They destroy Jerusalem.
Or does it refer to some future? Or does it represent maybe all of them?
Yeah.
The fact that this world expects to be worshipped in a way that we can't accept, which gets back to the whole point of us as Christians in this world serving God and yet serving one another in the best way we can.
And that's why this particular part is kind of hard to walk through, because it's like, okay, what do we actually step into and what don't we? So we'll just do our best to walk through it a little bit. So first vision, Daniel says there's this vision that is had. Daniel says that the statue of this vision, so there's a statue that represents, he says, a train of human kingdoms following after Babylon that will fill God's world with violence, and that yet one day, however, God's kingdom will come and humble the arrogant nations of the world, filling the earth with the healing and justice of God. So that's kind of vision one. What do we have from that?
You can get, and a lot of people will lay out, this is
this kingdom,
this is this kingdom, this is this kingdom, this is the kingdom. Oh, this is the Romans.
Yeah, the different based off of, because the different parts were different
materials,
like bronze, gold, things like that.
Bronze, on down to the feet of clay.
Yeah,
I think it is. But anyway, the point being that again that's an easy interpretation. That's something we can take away from it. You can call it fulfilled, but I still think it has a value as a future vision.
Yeah.
But the larger issue of there are empires that are going to come, and they are going to go as God wills them, and yet the end will come.
Yeah. And ultimately, it's pointing to God's kingdom. Like
ultimately,
in the midst of
is God's kingdom, and ultimately.
So no matter what kingdom rises in your generation,
exactly,
God's kingdom still reigns.
Even if we aren't the generation that sees Christ's second coming, we will all face a point where we will meet God and come to see his kingdom, if not in this world, then in the next. And so I don't know that you throw all this away because you say, well, I'm not expecting Jesus to come back in the next 10 minutes. A, how do you know? And B, does it matter?
Yeah. And isn't this is the vision where a big rock falls basically, and it's like a mountain?
Yeah, and it smashes.
It smashes the statue.
The statue, which what will happen is that his kingdom will fall to the Medes, and then the Medes will fall to the Greeks, and the Greeks will fall to the Romans, and
as
on down for the next couple of thousand years.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so everything's pointing towards the kingdom of God in all of these stories. let's we talked a little bit about the Son of Man already. Daniel 7. So this is Daniel's dream, and it focuses the story on Daniel's dream this time, so not one of the kings. And it says that he can't understand it until an angel appears and explains it to him. And Daniel sees a series of 4 beasts in this dream. 3 of them are like a lion, a bear, and a winged leopard. Now, picture that in your head.
Yeah, wrap that one, yeah.
And he uses the context again, similar to John in Revelation, of like a lot. Like, it's always one of the things that I always try to help people remember is like, he's trying to describe something that he can't fully describe. So he's giving the best example he can.
Exactly. I worked as a pilot for much of my life, and if you start talking flow equations and mass movements and one thing and another, and people get a little lost when you talk about why an airplane flies. And if you just go, well, there's little lifties on the wing, and then when I pull back the stick, I get more lifties, and it goes up. When I push the stick forward, I get less lifties. If I pull the stick too hard, then the lifties all fall off the back of the wing. The airplane quits flying. And so you use an as-if. We use as-ifs all the time.
Yeah.
Talk to somebody about quantum physics and quantum chromodynamics. You don't get very far with ordinary language because it is something that's beyond us.
Yeah.
So Daniel has the same problem that the average physicist has at a cocktail party. He can't explain it in what he has seen in adequate terms, and even in his language. Yeah. So we end up with these descriptions like a bear, like this creature, like with all these different parts. What does that mean? Yeah.
Now we also have a 4th beast that it talks about, which the last creature it describes as a monstrosity. It's identified as a terrible, evil empire type thing, and the 4th beast has lots of horns. Lots of horns, which is a common symbol for kings in the Old Testament. So with one specific horn representing a king that exalts himself above God. So like there's all this imagery again. And then the symbol for God's people is the Son of Man.
Right.
So.
And the Son of, we've talked about where the Son of Man goes.
Yeah.
He also frequently uses the term for God, Ancient of Days, which I think is almost unique to Daniel.
Yeah.
But
it is only found in Daniel.
Only found in Daniel.
Yeah. Like there's some references title. Like in Psalm, like everlasting to everlasting, that's kind of similar in its context, but Ancient of Days is its own label and name in Daniel. So
which is interesting.
Yeah.
If nothing else.
Yeah, and so this Ancient of Days we would refer to as God. And then the what we see though is he destroys the great monster and exalts the Son of Man to the clouds, where he sits at God's side and shares in God's rule over all the nations. So, Son of Man, Ancient of Days, some language that we try to wrap our minds around a bit, but we can't fully grasp all of it because there's a lot of stuff with all that.
The nice thing, though, is it reflects back to where we are going to end up in the New Testament, because the Son of Man is exalted on high, which is almost straight out of our what am I trying
Revelation?
to think? I was going to say our confession.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So a lot of times here, Daniel and Revelation get intertwined.
They get intertwined. The way I would put it is that Revelation sometimes reflects Daniel.
Yeah. Yep. And so remembering both have prophecy within it, and they're similar. They're apocalyptic literature. Not all of Daniel's apocalyptic, but definitely that last prophecy parts are definitely leaning towards the apocalyptic literature. So,
exactly.
What else do we need to know about the book of Daniel? We kind of highlighted a lot of pieces. What is our big thing that we need to take away? What is it that we need to know on Daniel?
What is my takeaway from Daniel? I think, to me, it is the balancing act as people of faith that we have to take to live in the world, but
not of it.
But not of it.
Yeah.
And so for me, as a traveler, and I always think of it in terms of I can be in this culture, I can be part of this culture, even in America. How do I choose to interact with my colleagues of different faiths and different backgrounds?
Yeah.
How do we behave? Marlene and I have lived in a lot of cultures, a lot of places, and you make accommodation while still celebrating life your
because
own way.
We are still called to love people.
Exactly.
Even difficult people, like Nebuchadnezzar. Like, what I always find interesting with Nebuchadnezzar in particular is he is a guy who confesses to believe in God at one point.
Yeah.
And yet, like, God is clearly using him in some certain ways throughout this. And yet, at some point, he confesses, and yet then still builds himself this gigantic statue of idolatry.
Exactly. It's an enormous
it's
statue covered in gold. But yours is the right God, but it's almost a little polytheistic.
Yeah,
if you will.
but there is this beauty in all of it that undergirds it, of that God control. God is in control. God's kingdom is present and will continue to come, no matter what. No matter what empires come.
Exactly.
So, the book of Daniel, when we step back from it, I am reminded of Romans chapter 12, 1 and 2. Do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Which is a reminder, again, that we are called to interact with this world. We are called to be in this world, love this world, the people in it, and ultimately our hope is to point them to Jesus. But we still walk in this world, we live in this world, we play in this world. We have to figure out, though, where is that boundary of what cannot be crossed.
That's the hard part. It would be easy, and some Christian communities have done that, to simply literally put a wall around our community and say, outside of this we don't go, because this is our interpretation. This is how we're going to dress. This is how we're going to worship. But then the word never goes forward, and we're called to do that. So we have to be in the world.
Yeah.
But if we give up on it, then it's not there.
That's what we see with Paul going to the Gentiles.
Yeah.
He could have easily just communed into a little holy huddle and never been stoned, never been shipwrecked, never been crucified upside down likely.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but that's not who we are called to be as Christians. We are called to be a part of this world, yet bring the light of Christ into it. So, yeah.
Yep.
Well, any final thoughts?
No, thank you.
Well, thanks for joining me, Robert.
I thank you for inviting me. I very much appreciate it.
It's been fun talking Daniel. So next week, we step into 3 books. I'm probably going to butcher it. I think it's Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi, I believe. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and you'll find out next week. So thanks for joining us, though. It's been a pleasure having you. Would love to hear what you're reading as you're reading, what questions come up. And let us know how your readings are going. Are you sticking with it? How's Daniel been for you? We love to hear from you and share in that together. So have a great week. We will see you next time. God bless.